In South Africa right now, in certain areas, they're rationing water, how much you get for the day. They have decided how much you and your family deserve. And so we know that based on how much money you have will determine if you got to stand in those lines and how much you're going to get in that bucket. And so while we have not come to that here, we need to be very, very clear and understand that the powers that be have always thought that these types of issues don't affect them and that they can, own water, own air.
That was Brooke Floyd of the People's Advocacy Institute in Jackson, Mississippi. Over the past 20 years, Brooke has established herself as an advocate for the most marginalized members of her community, as both a public school teacher and even the director of children's services for a local Jackson, Mississippi-based nonprofit. However, it was in her role at the People's Advocacy Institute, where she serves as co-director of the Jackson People's Assembly, that she came to advocate for equal access to one of our most precious resources, water. Welcome to She Really Gets It, a public health podcast. I'm Stephanie Rhodes, a Black woman, public health professional, and your guide to understanding how policies, institutions, and the systems that uphold them harm the public's health, but also how people are coming together to repair that harm and change the system. In this episode of She Really Gets It, Brooke and I discuss what unites us all in the fight for our lives.
I think if you are from Jackson, you know about the water, from being a little kid. I moved to Jackson in 1987, 88. And before I ever moved here, I can remember visiting my grandma in the summers and holidays, and she boiled her water, right?
Really?
It's a thing. Yes, my grandmother boiled her water. She never, ever cooked with that water without boiling it. Heck, she used to boil her water to wash dishes. My grandmother did not play with Jackson, Mississippi water. Yes. And then there's a racial element here. So old Black folks from our city, and my grandmother, and grandfather too, told me this history. The reservoir, that land was Black folks' land. And it was poor white folks' land. It was their farmland. And when the state government decided they wanted that to make this recreational lake, they didn't give them what that money was worth. You can never give a family what their farmland is worth. And so those that did not sell were basically burned out, right? They just came in and took it from them. So there's also an element of my grandparents, like, we not drinking that water because of how it was taken from our people. So the water's not safe, it's nasty, it looks bad, there's things floating in it, and then how it was taken and where it comes from. And so I was always very aware of Jackson's infrastructure issues. So we have that element going on. And so I think I was a water person way before I was a water person and got into this, right? But I think a lot of people just kind of went along with it like, oh, I just drink bottled water here, without understanding the context of the history of it. When we got into this, August 29th, 2022, when everything hit the fan, and I think due to COVID, people had kind of sat down for a while, so people started paying attention more to the news cycle and what was happening. And so America paid attention. Well, heck, the world paid attention, really. We had worldwide people paying attention. And so we were asking, like, the federal government and the state to pay attention. Like, hey, you have not invested in the infrastructure in Jackson at all. Since 1965 was the very first time that the city had the very first big flood and everything happened, and the federal government sent funding to fix the infrastructure, and it was diverted on purpose from the city, from the state diverted it to other areas because they have that capability in our state to not follow what the federal government tells them to do. So you have that happening in 1965, 1966. You have it again happen in 79. You have it again happen in 83. And if we look at those timelines, every time that happens, our white suburbs, our segregationist academies within our city and right outside of it, they got flood control. Their infrastructure got built up. Jackson's did not. And during those times, we had white leadership.
Yeah.
We had a predominantly black city, but we had white leadership, right?
Yeah.
And so those mayors were asking for help, and they did not receive it. And so we have a consistent effort to not support this city that was detrimental to the health and well-being of its residents, regardless of what color you are, regardless of what economic, bracket you're in. Even if you don't drink it, you're bathing in it.
And I think you bring up an interesting point, well, a couple of interesting points. First, that when people think of racism, and I think of when people are so accepting of racism, it's because they think, well, it won't affect me. It's going to affect those people over there. It doesn't affect me. So if you are a white person that lives in Jackson, guess what? The water, the pipes don't know that you're white. When you're giving people permission to harm one group of people because you think it doesn't have anything to do with you, it eventually does touch you. Another thing I wanted to circle back on is when you say the water system failed in 2022, what does it mean for a water system to fail?
So at that time, what happened, was it O.B. Curtis couldn't get enough water pressure to stay, whatever it is, the PSI or whatever it had to be at that time. It couldn't get above there because a few days before we had monsoon level rains that were unprecedented at the time. And it caused localized flash flooding that continued and continued over 3 days' time. And it just kept coming and kept coming. And the storm just settled over Jackson and caused so much rain and flooding that the system that was already taxed, the system that every mayor since 19 whatever had been complaining about and telling them it was going to fail, it failed. And so they couldn't get the pressure back up to supply water to the city. And so you had the whole city that was down.
So no water for drinking, no water for baths,
flushing,
no water
toilets, nothing. The Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition had to give water to people all the way until December.
So 4 months without water.
Yes.
Okay. And so where are we now in terms of the water situation with Jackson?
So after we did those marches every 2 weeks from Mountain Helm Baptist Church, the historic church off of Fair Street, to the governor's mansion, the federal government sent the money. The city of Jackson had been applying for these funds for quite a while. The funds that they applied for with additional funding finally came down. I think it came down in November of 2022. Don't quote me, but I think, around Thanksgiving, money came down. And so as soon as that money came down, the city had a choice to make, and these were behind closed doors, but we have since learned that it was basically either you give this water system over to the federal government, who will then turn it over to a third-party manager, or you relinquish it to the state. Now, the state of Mississippi, as we have seen, has not really had our best interests at heart since 1965. So the city, and I'm saying city as administration and city council and lawyers and everything, said, we'll go with the third party manager because at least there's oversight there with the DOJ and the EPA. The third party manager was appointed in December of 2022, and they took over the city of Jackson's water. In the beginning, that relationship, they were forthcoming. In fact, they came to a people's assembly. They talked about their plans, were very transparent. They wanted to get rid of people's egregious bills because people did not have correct bills. I myself have had a $30,000 bill, $15,000 bill, $8,000 bill, and I think a $20,000 bill.
What?
I've had lots of thousands upon thousands of dollar bills with no leak on my property. Because of this, there was a program that was coming. It's called the Promise program, and they were going to help pay folks egregious bills so they could start out good and fresh with this new third-party administrator with the city of Jackson. The state got wind to that, and there's a state law that you cannot forgive folks' utility bills. Preemption
What?
at its finest. Mississippi state law just wants to make sure you can't forgive people's utility bills. It's been like that for quite some time.
Really?
Yes, it's horrible. It's horrible. Mississippi is hilarious in so many ways.
How
And
inhumane.
so once inhumane and racist and so horribly, horribly, horribly cruel to the people that live in the poorest state in the union.
Yeah.
Especially when you refuse to raise the minimum wage or fund public education. So people can't improve their means, right?
They cannot.
So once the state shot down this measure, we were informed that that program could no longer happen. Communication between the third-party manager and community advocates was shut down. The third-party manager then fired all the residents that were from Jackson that worked in the water department. They closed and they privatized the water. And so people still blaming the city for their water issues. The city of Jackson has not owned their water since the end of November 2022, beginning of December 2022. They have not owned their water. That's number one. Number two, it became a private entity in the spring of 2023.
And so I know that the work you're doing right now in terms of water isn't just in Jackson, because this water crisis isn't unique to Jackson, right? There are other places where you're seeing cases similar to Jackson. Where are those cases and how are they similar to the city of Jackson?
So, Jackson gets a bad rap. In our state especially. I think the governor was quoted of saying, 2 weeks ago, that, Jackson has proven they don't need control over their water. Number one, there's just issues with water system in our state. Number two, the water board authorities are horrible and wreaking havoc over rural areas throughout our state. Yeah. But there are 82 counties in our state. Out of those 82 counties, 80 have PFAS chemicals in their water. Okay. Out of those 82 counties, 80 of them also have such horrible infrastructure that people are without water. People have things floating in their water. People have brown water, discolored water, that I know people are like, discoloration doesn't mean that it's bad. You're right, it doesn't, but this water is bad.
Okay.
These 80 counties also have lead piping that has not been replaced.
Okay.
Because your capital city's infrastructure hasn't been replaced, I assure you that the rural areas have not been replaced either, because our rural areas were there before the capital city was. The only infrastructure that is sound are newer municipalities that were built later. The rest of us that were built with infrastructure before 1979, lead was used after then too, so you're looking a little bit in the 80s in some places, but especially in Mississippi, because we usually had delayed reactions to things. But you have to be very careful. And so you have mass areas in the state of Mississippi whose water is not okay. You have mass areas in Mississippi where they did not follow the EPA rules, and so factories were running off, leaking into the groundwater, leaking into the soil. And so it was poisoning the water stream, right? It was poisoning the water supply, but nobody said a word. Prairie Farms, Ben Kosciuszko, they have been allowed to dump their runoff in ponds, streams. Really? Whole communities have been sickened by it. And they're like, oh, it's fine, it's not harmful. Why are so many people getting sick then? So Tarsha, the whole town was poisoned because of a CO2 line break. Now, and it was under the ground. It was under the ground. Then they're like, oh, we cleaned it up, it's gone. No, you didn't. They did not. People were so sick. They had seizures. They blacked out. They have migraines. They continue to have this. This was over, what, 6, 7 years ago now, 8 years ago now?
Yeah.
People have just moved away and left. But the point is, it went into the soil. What goes into the soil goes into your water. And they never came back and cleaned it up. And so now we have more pipelines proposed. That's just in Mississippi, y'all. That's not in Pritchard, Alabama. That's not in Flint, Michigan. That's not in Detroit, Michigan. That's not in Mount Vernon, New York. That's not in, was it right outside Dallas, where they just cut off the whole community and was like, oh, we're not fixing your infrastructure. Y'all just don't get water anymore. That's not in our indigenous communities out west that have no water access. They've denied them any access to water. They're just like, we're just not giving you any infrastructure. You keep having these tanks out here. I have talked to so many communities around the United States. Upstate New York. There's a whole community that they've just decided once they had a big freeze, once the line broke, they just didn't fix it. So a whole community of like 150 families, they're just not going to give them water access. And this is a white community. It's just rural.
Yeah. You mentioned how this is similar. It's not just Jackson. It's all over the country. You mentioned Texas.
It is.
Mount Vernon, New York. You mentioned indigenous communities all over the United States. This is a big issue. And it brings me back into, I want people for this podcast, I'd love to get people to see how systems work and how things are coordinated, with the goal of getting people to see that we're going to have to work together. We're not separate. We're all connected. And those in power see that we're all connected. I was thinking about, I don't know if you ever heard about, you might have, I'm sure you have heard about this, the guy who owns Nestle. He made a comment saying he wanted to own water. I believe that was him. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. He wanted to own water. And how do you own water? You make it a scarcity, right? You create false scarcity. Do you believe that there is a coordinated effort to deny multiple communities systematically access to water in order to create scarcity? Or what are your thoughts on that? Or am I being a conspiracy theorist? I don't know.
I don't think you're being a conspiracy theorist. Unfortunately, I don't think you are. I have done a water call, which is so sad, but I've done a water call, worldwide water call, let's say that. I've talked to people in other countries that are dealing with this issue and recognized the similarities that we have. And so in South Africa right now, in certain areas, they're rationing water, right? How much you get for the day. They have decided how much you and your family deserve. And so we know that based on how much money you have will determine if you got to stand in those lines and how much you're going to get in that bucket. And so while we have not come to that here, we need to be very, very clear and understand that the powers that be have always thought that these types of issues don't affect them and that they can, own water, own air. What is it? One of my favorite, I was a teacher, I work with children. So the best movie ever, or the best book from Dr. Seuss, when you have, the leader of the world in, who's that? What's the one? Of course, I don't remember it now. But with the little guy that's going around and he's telling, if you don't take care of the trees and you don't have this and you got to take care of the trees. And then the rich guy ends up buying all the air. So you have to pay him to breathe, basically. Yeah. And so this is what the owner of Nestle and the owner of these other companies are trying to propose is, well, I'll just buy this and then they'll have to pay me to drink water. A basic human right to drink water. And I hate to bring it back to race, but it's always about race. Because we did not stop all the things that they did to black folks, all the things that they did to indigenous folks, all the things that they have done to brown people, because we have allowed it, because you didn't think it affected you, because you were not black, brown, indigenous, because you weren't an immigrant, because you thought, well, that doesn't affect me, I'm okay. Because you didn't stop that.
Yeah.
Now they are coming for you. And I used to, my students, they would have a piece of gum or candy, right? And so you take off the wrapper and you throw it on the ground. And I would say, excuse me, what are you doing? We get,
Yeah.
Miss Floyd, it doesn't matter. It's just right here. Yes, it does. Because the poison from the wrapper leaches into the soil. And then
Yep.
that gets carried and it goes down and it goes down further. And there's springs down there and there's water running way down there that you don't see. And then it gets carried. And while you think it only affects your little spot right here, it gets carried in 50 miles, 100 miles, 250 miles away. That is going to poison somebody's water stream. They would look at me like I was crazy. They were like, what? Until I showed them the floating piles of garbage in the ocean, until I
Yeah.
made them watch the bee story, until I made them, and there's things, and children, I love babies, first of all, because they're very easy to understand.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we are all connected. Grown-ups, for some reason, forget that we are all connected. And the water here in Jackson connects our water on the coast. And the water here in Jackson and the soil here in Jackson, from the top of the state to the bottom, it affects Alabama, it affects Louisiana. And the Mississippi River flows all the way from freaking Wisconsin, Minnesota. It's up there. And what they're doing up there is affecting us. And I don't think people quite get that.
Yeah.
The Pearl River runs right through Jackson.
Yeah.
That is where the reservoir is getting its stuff from. That is from it. And that is the water that is coming out of my faucet.
Exactly.
And they're not getting it.
They're not. I feel like the saxophones are getting louder and louder. You seen that meme? Like
Yes. It's like, yeah.
It's like the saxophones are getting louder and louder and louder, and people aren't quite hearing it until it directly affects them, or until they get, an illness or a serious sickness that can't be easily cured as a result of it, or it happens to their loved one, and then it's a problem. And that brings me to even think about right now, we had an already existing water crisis, but now we have AI data centers, right? I was hearing about reports coming in about some of the AI data centers in Oregon, and people are getting these crazy rare cancers, right, as a result of these AI data centers. And who is held liable for this, right? How is this acceptable? How are these getting in our communities? You have communities that are coming to them. They're coming to meetings, right, where there seem to be like people that are in positions of power, and they're stating that they don't want this. The people are completely against it, and it feels like they're getting railroaded. They're coming anyway. You have no choice. Is that an issue that people in Mississippi and everywhere, I think a lot of people are very aware of it and very terrified of it. Is there a way right now that we can preempt that? Is there anything like brewing on the horizon? Are there like fights that are being won in this area? And what do AI data centers mean for the health of the water system in Jackson and elsewhere?
So yes, there is a growing movement to push back. And so Mississippi People's Movement is an environmental group from around the state, organizations from around the state that have been working on this and fighting back. Mississippi Rising Coalition is fighting back. I'll say this which is horrible. It's so horrible because up in North Mississippi, they were hoodwinked before they quite knew what was happening. And the governor kind of sold the stuff out from under them. And now they're dealing with the consequences of that. Because of what happened there, though, people from other places are able to say, hold up, wait a minute. Now, Rankin County, Mississippi, the land was kind of already taken from them before they were able to realize what has happened. But I have spoken to a lot of people that are starting to push back. In fact, some of their residents came to Jackson City Council meeting and was like, y'all don't want this. Like, let me tell you, you do not want this here. And in a place like Mississippi, and see, this is how they did Memphis. In a place like Mississippi, and Jackson is very similar to Memphis, we just don't have as many people, that needs money so bad, and that needs jobs so bad. It is so very easy to take the bait for a data center because they promise you revenue. They promise you jobs. They promise you all this income. What ends up happening, though, is those 500 or 1,000 jobs that they promise you, they're gone in like 2-3 months because they don't need 1,000 people to run a data center. You go from 1,000 to like 10 jobs, and that's it.
Yeah.
They just need you there for the front, right? Like, and then your money that you made is gone in like 2-3 months, and people need to understand that. That's number one.
Yes.
Number two, the health damage that is going to cause to your community, whether it's noise pollution, overall pollution, the water usage. Now, they're claiming now that they have new technology, so they don't have to use all the water, but I haven't seen it yet. I still haven't seen it. And Memphis sure as hell hasn't seen it, because where they put it over there in Cancer Alley in Memphis, and all the damage has already been done, and the way that they tricked those people, and the mayor made the deal without even the state reps and the state senators that are from that area did not even know that it was coming. Yes, he made the deal with the governor, who come on now, without the people that live there knowing, and then was talking about, well, they're going to give us, I forget, whatever BS amount of money. Like, dude, this is not enough for the amount of cancer folks are finna have. This is not enough for the long-lasting damage. Or if folks have asthma now, that's already like, they have the most cases of asthma for that area. They have the most cases of cancer for that area. They have the most, like every illness that is related to an environmental hazard, or every illness that is a direct result of something, they have it concentrated there. And then this man sold the rights and let them build a data center there and said, well, I mean, we're getting compensated, and it's some measly amount. It's not even like 20 million. It's not even like that. Like, it may be like 35 million, but spread across, the amount of people that live there, that is chump change. Because you're going to kill all my kids and me. So what does that matter?
Exactly.
And he was like, I mean, they can build a community center. I was like, this mayor needs to go somewhere now. Right. Boy, are you serious right now? We're going to be dead. We can't even play basketball in a community center. Like, are you freaking kidding me right now? And then nobody's going to want to live here.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
It's been quite amazing to me to think about people's inability to think about the long-term consequences of their actions and strictly focus on extremely short-term benefits, like very, 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 very short-term.
Yes.
And I don't know. And these are our supposed leaders. This is leadership. These are people that vied to get into leadership positions. And once they got there, they took the first payout and sold out their entire community and are willing to poison the air, the soil, the water. And as a public health person, I think about children's exposures, because children are unique in terms of their bodies, right? After like environmental health, you learn like children are lower to the ground. So when they breathe in, they breathe in things that are in the soil because they are literally lower to the ground. They also have different hand-to-mouth behaviors. They tend to put things in their mouths. That's how they explore the world. They consume more per their body weight because they have developing organ systems. So they breathe harder than adults. They eat more than adults per their body weight. And they have a developing organ systems. So they're not a fully developed adult. You're actually altering their brain development, nervous system development. You're altering how they're developing, right? And then getting mad at the children for being out of control.
How they act.
Well, you engineered it, right? Like, you ensured that this would happen, and now you're very confused about the present that you created. So this seems, I don't know. I'm very confused as to why some people went into leadership, but I guess maybe it's because they didn't think too deeply about it. I don't know. Maybe we need more deep thinkers. We need more deep thinkers in leadership.
No, I have words to call them, but I'll keep them to
So it's very interesting to hear the thought processes and the justifications, and I don't get it because I do wonder, like, where are you going to go, sir, ma'am? They, them, I am always kind of confused as to what their long-term plans are, because this is not sustainable. And so I think when we think about sustainability, it's like, what's going to happen as a result of this data center in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years? What does this look like?
It's no long-term plan, because the people that are being affected, the people that continue to vote for these people because they think they are harming just us, you don't have Bezos money. You don't have the money that's going to put you in a pod and float up out the sky and get off this planet. You're going to have to live here with us when they
Yeah.
abandon you, because they
Yeah.
will. Because hate only lasts so long to
Yeah.
rule with. Hate is not, you can't just bank on hate. I'm sorry. I mean, you can, but it's a short-term strategy. And so
Yeah.
you're going to have to breathe this stanky air like the rest of us. You're going to have to, have your vegetables grown in this nasty soil and this poison water and bathe in it. And, going back to that public health thing and the health consequences, I was a teacher. Like, I saw, people complain about how children act all the time. And our babies are directly being affected by all of this. And, all of these cities that I mentioned about their issues with the water, they have had complaints about violence, right? They have had complaints about children and an uptick in children behaviors of, from the smallest thing to, horrible acts of what children have done. And please, I'm not putting it all on our environment, because some of this is a direct result of parents not doing their job. But some of that stuff is parents have been affected by this stuff too. Now, you can't not pay attention to environmental factors. We have stress, we have all those things too, and those are definitely factors on things, because I never believe that people have babies and say, I'm going to be the most horrible parent ever. People try to do their best. But I do know that there are things that are beyond our control that are happening to us. And there are things that affect our bodies and our minds. And little babies especially, because their stuff is forming.
Yeah.
And they can't help. We know what lead can do.
Yes, we do.
Lead can make you violent.
Yes.
It can make you have, ADD, ADHD. It can make you have all those things, and all those other PFAS chemicals can do horrible things to your body and your health. And the stuff in the soil that these data centers are projected to put in, the stuff that they put in the air. I mean, I remember 8th grade earth science. I don't think a lot of people do, but like the stuff, when it goes up, it comes back down. Like the smoke and stuff going up, it's going to come back down in the rain.
Exactly.
And hit us.
Exactly.
Like acid rain used to be a fear of mine. I think people forgot about that.
Oh, I was thinking about my mom. I was saying the other day, she was like, this rain is weird. She was like, it's really disgusting. I've been catching it in buckets. She's like, it's really disgusting, like this rain. And I was like, really? She was like, yeah, I always catch the rain. She was like, I've never noticed to be this nasty before.
Wow. I have not paid attention to it like that. I probably need to start catching it in buckets and test it. Because, and you said something earlier, you were like this coordinated effort. And so, and I'm thinking, we're talking about people becoming sick or having these health issues. In Mississippi, our hospitals have closed. And so our clinics have closed. And now, the places that we once went to get help for these illnesses are no longer there.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are still there are going to be stressed. And so I know you said earlier, you're like, what can people do? And that's been sitting with me the whole time that you said this. Like, what can community do?
Yeah.
And so in the back of my head, I was like, okay, prepare. I'm thinking in my head, like, how can we prepare? How can we fight back? And then at the other thing is that, how can we survive? So there's like 3 things in the back of my head, like, what are the things that we could do to do this? Because you don't want people, when people feel hopeless and helpless, there's an element of that I'm just going to sit still. We've all felt like that. When you feel completely overwhelmed, you just can't move. And we don't want people not to be able to move.
Yes.
So to prepare, I'll say this, to prepare. We've been thinking a lot about this in our Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition. How can we prepare? If you're a Jackson resident, you know the drill. Keep you some jugs around for drinking, and the non-potable, the potable stuff, so you can flush your toilets in the event of emergency.
Yes.
Hey, always be prepared. And if it starts to get cold, or really cold, you see that coming, or they're talking about we may have something coming up, fill your bathtub with water so you're ready.
Okay.
And that is the prep work for Jackson folks.
Okay.
It just to be safe,
Yes.
right? If you have money to purchase it, always keep you an extra case of water or the big 5-gallon jugs. Keep them at your house just to have one. It's worth it just to have it. That way you're not panicked, especially if you have elderly folks living with you, or go get it for the elders that you have, or if you have small children, or if you have folks in your home with a chronic illness, or you have a chronic illness. Because you cannot risk having water that's not safe to drink, and you cannot survive with drinking water. Bottom line, end of discussion. So that's my prep. And for prep on the aspect of the soil part, we have to be sustainable, guys. We have to look at ways. Please test your soil before you do what I say. Test your soil. Mississippi State will test your soil for free. If you can call and ask them for a soil testing kit.
Really?
They'll send you a little box. Almost every college will if they have like the ag department. But I trust Mississippi State because they're like the ag school. Come on. It looks like a milk carton when they send it to you. And you fold it out. They'll give you all the instructions. You send it back to them, and they will test it for everything.
Okay.
So this is your backyard, your front yard. Yes, they're very helpful. But plant yourself a garden, y'all. Plant yourself a garden. We have to be prepared if in the event that, any of these natural disasters, climate disasters, data center disasters, whatever the case may be, that we are able to have something to sustain us in those actions. And make sure you have an emergency bag in your home. So you're not left. Make sure you have a charger for your cell phone that is already charged and ready to go. Make sure you have batteries, flashlight, emergency kit with Band-Aids and all the things. Because we do need to have those things ready. You need to have it ready. And, we depend on our phone for maps now. Used to, my daddy's emergency bag had a real map. A real map. Yes, I know. Get a real map.
My mom used to pull out real maps because she would order them. Like, she worked for the phone company. And I feel like she would order them from the phone company. Would they give her maps?
Probably so.
I don't know. Where did she get maps? She used to, or maybe she got them from the insurance company. Like, it would give you free maps. You could map out your little vacation.
The insurance company used to do that.
Yes. Okay. Yes. They would give you they'd map out. Yes. Okay. I have a vague memory of this.
Yes. Insurance companies were the best. They used to give that out.
Yes. They would map out your route. Okay. Yes. I remember that. I'm thinking more and more about how, going back to like AI data centers, how they're making people dumber. I was like, the kids now don't know how to write a letter or an email. And I was like, this is really messing up y'all's reading comprehension skills, your inability to write. I was like, because it forces you to really sit through a thought and learn how to think critically about what it is that you're really trying to say and how to make it clear to someone who isn't you. I was like, this really is destroying your ability to think. And I was like, y'all don't feel it. I feel it. And I've clearly been writing my whole life and I can feel it. I know the difference between like, oh, okay, when I see like, I'm reading people's emails and I can tell that it feels like it's written by Chat GPT or some type of AI, Claude, whatever they're using. And I was like, y'all, this is actually having a very detrimental effect on your brains and y'all's ability to think critically. This is a serious problem. And I feel you can already see it. Like I can already see it. Some of y'all getting in arguments over things that aren't even an argument because they agreed with you. You're just not interpreting it properly because you're not thinking critically. You have to learn how to write. I'm very anti-AI in the classroom. That's my own personal thing. I'm not here for AI in children's classrooms.
No, I'm not. I think it's very telling that because I come from a line of teachers. So my mother always brings up the fact that like the Silicon Valley folks don't allow it in their classrooms. So all those tech people's kids that have created all this stuff for us to use,
Yeah.
Their classrooms out there don't have it.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't tell you all you need to know, like, I'm just like, y'all, they are telling us not to use it by the actions of what they do for their children.
Exactly.
Period.
Yep.
And I was an English major, so I had to write with a pen and paper. Now, we had to type it up, of course, when we turned it in. But, like, my thing is, like, it had to be your own thoughts. And your professor, my professors would say, you know, if someone helped me with the paper, these aren't your words. What is this? You know, like, you had to make sure. Yeah, you had to make sure that it was your stuff. And our thinking critically is so important. And we are seeing what happens when people don't think critically.
Yeah.
And when they expect others to do it for them.
Yes.
We are experiencing this in this country now because people have allowed people to tell them what to think, who to be afraid of, and how to vote and move forward. And I think that is where we are. However, because of that, there is an opportunity there for us to then sit with people and ask them, hey, how are you? How are you feeling? What is going on in your life? And when you have these one-on-one conversations, when you get to know people and you actually make an effort to have a relationship with people, then we'll be able to move back. And I hate to say move back, because for some people that is a scary thing. You know, if I would have told my father we need to move back to something, he'd been like, to what? The 60s? Like, you know, like, so I don't necessarily think we need to move back to anything, but that will help us move forward to a better future for all of us. And so with preparing and pushing back, you know, if we look up I'm from Missouri, Lord, and I was going to say it wrong, but Festus, Missouri.
Yeah.
They just got rid of every city council member. Every single one.
Really?
That put that data center. Yes. So
beautiful.
People, that's our action. So we can push back on these.
Okay.
We can hold these folks accountable that are making money off of this and bringing these things to our area. I think the only roadblock we have is that everybody doesn't know.
Okay.
That's it.
So how can we get people to know? How do we let people know that this is what's happening and that they should care about it?
You know, one of the biggest things I remember from like my childhood, it would have been like the late 80s and early 90s, would have been the huge power grid things that were in people's neighborhoods. Cancer Alley in Louisiana had it, right? And so they built those by people's neighborhoods and told them it wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
And then we started having instances, you know, Aaron Brockovich, all that stuff. We started having these instances where all these people that lived near these had, you know, cancers that were similar. And then there was just large amounts of people that had them. And so at first, everybody was like, oh, that's so rare. It never happens. But then it started happening across the board.
Yeah.
And so now they don't build those next to people's neighborhoods anymore because everyone knows that this is a problem and you can't do this.
Yeah.
And so while I am a pen to paper person, I do recognize the power of getting on TikTok, of getting on Facebook, of getting on Instagram and screaming it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
And so there are unlikely alliances in this fight. There is a mother who does not want her baby living by a data center, who does not necessarily align with me on the views that I hold near and dear. But we do agree on that. We agree that we don't want our children near a data center. And so we are going to have these conversations with folks and just break it down. Do you want this building or this, well, it's not just a building, it's a monstrosity, near us that can cause our children health problems, that can cause our grandparents health problems, that can cause us health problems. We don't know the ramifications of this yet because they're so new.
Yeah.
These are, how the oldest one is what, 2 years, 3 years old. It takes time for people to see the dangers and what it can do. And in that short amount of time, we've already seen how bad it can get.
Yes.
I think what was it in Memphis? The degree has gone up of the heat around it for the neighborhood around it has already gone up 5 degrees.
Yeah. Which is crazy.
What?
Insane.
I mean, that alone in Mississippi should do it. We don't want it to get any hotter in the summertime. It's all connected. Our health is connected to the environment. Environment is a justice issue. Environment is a race issue. Environment is, an education issue. Environment is connected to everything, because if we don't have it, we're dead. I'm just going to say it like that. That's as clear and as plain as I can say it. And if you live in an environment, and I'll say this, whether it is polluted, and by pollution, I mean noise pollution, or there is literal trash on the ground, it will affect your health, whether that's mental health or your physical health. And so people tend to act like, environment, that's those people. No, it should be all of us. And it affects so many things for us. And one of the main things with the water crisis was our children didn't go to school. Anytime there's a hurricane, what happens? School is shut down. Work is shut down. Yeah. People that are not on salary don't get paid. And last time I checked, that's the majority of Mississippians.
Exactly.
If there's a tornado and your building that you work in gets blown away, baby, you're not getting paid. And these storms are way more ferocious than they were 20 years ago.
Exactly.
And so we really need to pay attention to the environment, because, my grandma used to say, like, Mother Nature is telling us something. She is angry today. And
yes,
so
she is.
Right. And so we have to pay attention. And when those things happen, they directly affect our health. When the floods happened, whether it's in Jackson or, down on the coast, Hattiesburg, or up north, wherever there is flooding, that water recedes and goes back down, but it just went through all the stuff in the city, all the trash, all the garbage, all the sewers, and then it washed back out and went back into our natural habitat, all our riverways, waterways, everything. And so now all that nasty stuff is back in our soil and everything. I don't think folks quite get that. Every time it rains in New Orleans, it floods the streets. And then it goes right back out into the waterway.
Yep.
And so back where they fish, back where you go down there and get that ooh, this is so delicious. This seafood is so good. Okay. It just flooded there 2 weeks ago. And they went back out there and caught them same fish and that delicious seafood and brought it right back in on your plate. So while you don't care about the environment, it directly affects you, and it directly affects your health. From the food you eat, to inside your body, to your heart, to your liver, to everything. And so we really have to pay attention. Our organization also, because we recognize that, we recognize when this first started with fixing the water in Jackson, that it was going to be a minute. So we, I myself, along with a community member named Dominic DeLeo, wrote a grant to the CDC Foundation, not the CDC, but the CDC Foundation, for water filters. Okay. The specific kind. We asked the EPA which kind, and if you do not get one from us, I'm telling you what kind you need. You need the NSF53 filter, and it filters out the contaminants that are found in Jackson's water. And so we provide free water filters. You can email info@paims.org.
Okay.
And say that you are in need of a water filter. And so let me say this. They are for Jackson residents, but we recognize that there are places all over this state that are in need of water filters. So if you are from like Holmes County, and I'm just giving an example, and you call me and you need a water filter, I'm not going to tell you, no, So please, so please understand that, because we've had folks from other places in Mississippi that are like, I live here, could I please get one? And yes, we have given out water filters.
If you would like to learn more about Brooke's work around water or how to obtain water resources in your own community, I have included links to all of the resources and organizations mentioned in the episode in the show notes. They can be found on my Substack at shereallygetsit.substack.com. And if you enjoyed this episode of She Really Gets It, please review and rate this podcast via Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else podcasts are found. It really helps people find the show.